So
Would you like me to take attendance, Dave?
do you want to wait maybe 5 minutes and we'll stop, we'll pause, and we'll take
Sure,
attendance at that time? Thanks, Maureen.
that's
Uh,
fine.
so let's start with just the minutes from last month. Maureen, thank you for sending them out as always. Do we have any comments or changes in the minutes? And if not, we'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve. Steve Powers.
Steve, a second. Don't all speak at once. Great. Anyone? Terrence, thank you for seconding the motion. I saw that. So we have a second. All in favor? If anyone opposes, just speak up, please, at this point. Great. The minutes are approved. We have a quick update. I'm not sure this is an update anymore for people, but Don, anything new on the, I mean, we were certified. Did we not have that? We knew we would be certified as of our last meeting. Maybe we
Yes,
have officially received notice since
Right.
then. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And we have these nifty plaques that,
Yep. If you see it in the background, I have it. One of
There
those
it
is going to be mounted on the front of 401. I have to talk to Brian about where to mount it. But
great. Great work, Wendy and Don, for going through, and Alejandra, going through so much paperwork and organizing ourselves so we can participate in this program and finally gotten certified. So that's great work. And we're also, was it 7 towns that were certified at the same time this time? And Columbia County was disproportionately representing climate smart certifications in the state in a big way. And kudos to all the work happening in the towns and all the progress that we're making. So good stuff there. We're going to just go through a bunch of actions. Some of these will be longer than others. And if there's anything additional, you can put something in the chat, send me a text, or just speak up at the appropriate time. We just wanted to get a quick update from Don on the government operations greenhouse gas inventory. We know it's happening. Don is working on it. Don, do you want to share anything on that?
yeah, it's in progress. I have access to all of the information that I need through the controller's office, which is right next door. Right, just 20 feet away from my desk here, so it's very handy. I've been talking to them, and it's just a matter of taking the numbers off of the invoices, plugging them into a spreadsheet, uploading them to the portfolio manager or the spreadsheet that to organize things. And it's a lot of grunt work for the next probably couple of months to because there's a lot of meters that the county has spread all over, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get that, but it's moving forward. We're making progress on it.
Great. That's great. Thanks, Don, for that grunt work, because we know it is grunt work, but hopefully it slots into the
Yeah.
time that work in your schedule and where there's less urgent beating down your door. But good progress there. That's a great, that will be a great piece of work to really set our baseline and understand where we're currently at as a municipal government. And that will help as we develop our action plan later on. So thanks, Don. Christina, wait, let's pause here actually, and we'll take attendance. Maureen, we just want to let more people get on before we took attendance. Maureen, do you
Sure.
want to take?
I see Brenda Adams, John Bradley notified he can't make it. Supervisor Collins. I have Terrence Duval, Suzanne Flom. I have Dan Haas, Supervisor Hotling, Tara Humphrey notified, Claudia Kenny. I have Supervisor Knott. I have Wendy Madsen. Bill Mancini notified. I have John Matthew Mercier. Okay, I have David Newman present. Michael O'Hara, Patrice Perry present. Jennifer Phillips notified. Oh, I see Tistria is here. Okay. Let's see. I have Jolene Grace, Jody Braille. I have Bruce Schenker, and last Matt Stitchcomb. Is Matt here? Okay. I guess that's it. We're all set.
Okay. Thank you, Maureen. Appreciate it,
You're
as
welcome.
always. Before we move to the clean heating update, I just wanted to jump ahead because it's related to the community greenhouse gas inventory down on the further on the agenda. We had a kind of an exciting development over the course of the last couple of weeks. We heard from, remember everyone, just to remind for folks on the task force and anyone listening, that the distinction between government operations, which we're doing, is that government operations obviously covers the greenhouse gas emissions that we're measuring from the government, anything Columbia County, buildings, vehicles, landfill, things like that. And the community-wide would use publicly available information to gather a baseline of the current estimated emissions from the county as a whole, private and public parts of it. We would not require any gathering of personal information from anyone, any business or any person in the county. This is all publicly available information, like information from the utilities that's available. We were thinking that we would have to raise some money and hire a contractor to help work with us to do that. But just last week, we heard from Tara that there's a broader effort. We had heard a little bit about this. It's moving forward. It's called it's a EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant that CDRPC has gotten, which will include Columbia County in a regional greenhouse gas inventory that will happen likely next year. And then, so we will be part of that. We were able to, thanks to Ron and Brenda, Supervisor Knott and Adams, and Chairman Morrell, we were able to quickly turn around a letter of support, which I can share, for that program and our participation, which we forwarded. I think it happened within a day or two. So that was great. And thank you, supervisors, for doing that. And so the long and short of it is we'll be part of a regional effort, which makes sense. And also we don't have to expend any resources as a county to do this. And we don't have to go through an RFP process or anything else to find a contractor to do it. So that is the update. If we have any, I think Terrence has his hand up. I don't know if it's related, but if there's any questions on that, just raise your hand.
Not related. My internet buzzed out for a second. I didn't know if we accepted the minutes or if we just wanted to do that if we hadn't.
Oh, sorry. You, I thought I saw your hand second the minutes. You went down to second, and it turns out that you weren't actually doing that. But do you second the approval?
I do now. Yep.
Okay, great. So we have that on record. Thanks, Terrence. Must have been a glitch in your video. So Christina, are you on? Christina Bonsack?
I am. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Great. We are excited to hear an update on how it's going with the clean heating campaign.
I think it's going well. We have 26 installs countywide. I think a lot more are coming through the pipeline. I think a lot of people are listening to the messaging of starting with the audit, and that does take longer. So, but it is more effective in the end. So I know a lot of the contractors have a lot of leads, a lot of estimates they're doing right now. So that should lead to a lot of completed projects, I think, in the next few months. I think since our last time here, Hudson, Philmont, and Taconic have all had their scoping documents approved. So we're up to really good overall participation in the county, which is awesome. I was able to table at the Hudson Earth Day event, and that actually generated a lot of interest in with the work the hubs are doing in general, as well as Heat Smart. So I think that is great. The only negative thing I wanted to mention is on a call yesterday with NYSERDA, there's apparently someone going around Chatham pretending to work for NYSERDA and asking to look at energy bills for people. I don't know if this has come to anyone else's attention. I just found out about it late in the day yesterday, but they have a picture of him and they're investigating why he's doing that, but he does not work for NYSERDA. And so we're keeping an eye on that and hope that that is not nefarious and is not spreading around the county.
Yeah, that's strange.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the update. On the positive side, it sounds like a lot of great movement, and hopefully that individual will be apprehended sooner, or at least he'll stand down from whatever he's doing. So a couple questions, Christina, that have come up at the EMC meeting we had recently and in other places. One is on the audit side. People find it, the reimbursement, I believe, is pretty low for it's $100 maybe. And
Yep.
oh, it's 50. So people are having a hard,
150.
oh, 150. Thank you. Which apparently is low for some contractors to justify their time. They might have to spend 2 hours or some large amount of time, which is tough for them to do. And so we've heard feedback from people who are having a hard time. And if you have any advice on how they can get an audit, approach a contractor, and use those funds effectively, that would be helpful. So that's the first question.
Yeah, so that's something that NYSERDA is consistently getting feedback from contractors, from customers. They're definitely aware that that number needs to be higher, particularly in rural areas, to justify the travel time and paying people to kind of go out of the way. There's some contractors, I'll put in the chat, this is a link to a contractor I've worked with a lot more in the centralized capital region. And they lay out the types of energy audits. So the free energy assessment that NYSERDA often uses interchangeably with audit is actually less comprehensive than a full audit. You're entitled to a free audit if you qualify for some of the income eligible programs like Assisted Home Performance and Empower, whereas all New Yorkers qualify for an assessment, but it's a little bit more, that's the one that only pays $150. That's the one contractors don't feel as worth their time. Several contractors are starting to offer an upgrade for an additional fee. So they'd get the $150 from NYSERDA, and then they would charge the customer probably another $100, $200, depending on where they are and what it looks like. And that's something to ask the individual contractor. So that's kind of where it is for now. The Inflation Reduction Act will reimburse people for that out-of-pocket expense, 30% of that out-of-pocket expense. So,
oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, that's good information. A lot of good information. So we'll make sure that we spread the word. Please spread the word if you hear those questions to everyone, here, and then also through our various networks. Supervisor Adams.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Christina, if it'd be wonderful, if it'd be possible to summarize that in a short email so that we could distribute that to our Climate Smart Task Force.
yes, absolutely.
That's
Thank
a great
you.
idea. And I'll send it to the EMC as well, so all those members can get it out to their towns. That's right. The second question that comes up a lot, and I think I've answered it correctly, but I just wanted to confirm, is how do people get information in the on the myriad subsidies and programs that they qualify for financial assistance, whether it's low, moderate income or just general subsidies. And I've said, well, it's a lot of that might be custom, might be, like a case by case. It's hard to generalize what someone might get based on their situation, what they want to do in their home or business. And so what I suggest is having them go to you and your organization, starting with the website, and then putting the information in and contacting you so that you can start working with them. Is that the appropriate kind of information to pass along to people? And is there anything
Yeah.
else you can do?
No, I think that's great. I did just re-update the Heat Smart website to kind of branch out the federal as we're finding out more about what the IRA is going to cover. So we made that a separate section, which I
Great.
think is going to be helpful to people. I put that link in the chat, as well as there's a new energy.gov tool that I think is pretty useful. Again, I'm not the federal expert, but there's so much overlap that we're trying to do our best. And then also, I think since the last time I was on here, we launched the Hub website. So I'll put that in the chat as well.
Great.
So that doesn't just talk about clean heating and cooling, but kind of all of the ways. So that you can get directly contacted by an energy advisor, which is kind of like a caseworker for energy in your home.
And who does that energy advisor work for?
They work for the Hub, which is the 8 different nonprofits. So there's a few that work for the Affordable Housing Partnership of Albany, a few who work for Cornell Cooperative Extension of Albany County, one who works for TAP, the Troy Architectural Project. I think that's it.
That's great. That's great that these resources are available.
Yeah.
So let's make sure people know. If you could include that in your email as well, that would be really
Yeah.
helpful. And thank you for all that work and the essential resources that you're providing people in this complicated area. For folks to navigate.
It is complicated. So
Not like just signing up for one-stop shop. It's very specific to people's homes and situations and budgets. So we couldn't do this without you. So we appreciate the work you're doing. We certainly wouldn't do it effectively like you are. So the last question
I
is.
do want to, sorry, just one thing on that. I just do
Yeah.
want to, we're trying to put together all these resources, and we're certainly doing the best we can, but it is, I also want to be realistic with people's expectations and like, this may take a while still for people. So just as we're out spreading the word, also keeping people's expectations, not low, but manageable is good, I think.
Yep. Okay. Well, good to keep in mind. And are there any information sessions online or in person that we should be aware of that are coming up?
Nothing is coming up right now. I did another with Chatham, and yeah, I think we have some room this summer to do some things. I know there was talk of doing something at the Rojan Library, and yeah,
Okay.
we have some room now.
Well, let's put it on the task force. If folks in their towns or their local, towns, CSCs, or that they have any ideas and there's an interest in helping to sponsor an event like that, then get in touch with Christina, with me, with Don, and we'll help to organize it. Thank you, Christina. That's great work. Any other questions on the Heat Smart campaign? Okay. Now for some juicy interactive work that Don is doing. Did I set you up properly? Really, again, to have GIS mapping capabilities and someone like Don to actually execute them. So we're returning to the conversation around the EV infrastructure and fast chargers in the county. And just to kind of lay out a framework before Don gets into it as to how we're approaching this now. So we've talked about it quite a bit, but we're trying to find a path forward where we can invite a private company to come in and put in one or more fast chargers, like the Tesla charger that exists in the Stewarts near the bridge near Hudson. And so we've been in touch with a couple companies. What we're doing now is we're kind of fine tuning the mapping, and Don will explain that in a minute. And in this meeting, we would like to identify and agree on kind of the top priority locations, preliminary locations that we like, that meet certain criteria that he'll describe. And then Don and I will reach out with anyone else that's interested in joining us, to the town board, town supervisors in those towns, and set up a meeting to talk about it. we're not looking for anything from the town, and this is probably going to be private land, private landowners, and private business. But it's important to build support and understanding of what we're trying to do throughout the county and involve the local governments. So and also that's a conduit potentially relationships with the landowners, so we can build support and understanding and see if there's interest. So we'll be reaching out and then visiting some of these sites where there is interest to further kind of educate people on what we're talking about in general. And then we'll invite Blink and Livingston Energy, the two installers that we've been talking with, to come down and to assess those locations and meet with the stakeholders, and from there hopefully develop a proposal for a business plan for how this can move forward, which may or may not involve any municipality that wants to participate, and any of the potentially available funding, of which there's quite a bit for those municipalities to participate. Once we have more specifics as to where and what that plan looks like, we can then have a concrete conversation with the relative municipalities, the county, and any of the towns, to say, hey, this is the deal. Are you interested? Or this is just a private investment. So Donna's going to share his map in a moment, but first, Supervisor Adams.
I just wanted to understand, are we talking about fast chargers or both, slow and fast chargers?
I mean, we're really focused on fast chargers here.
Okay.
And we have quite a number of level 2s throughout the county. I mean, I think we could probably use more, but as we've talked about in the past, there's a real shortage. There's really only one, and there are no non-Tesla chargers in the county. As far as the needs for people who are commuting or driving long distances, the functionality of an electric car is enhanced greatly from having these chargers in a lot of places around, and they become more, it just allows us to use them more effectively. So it doesn't preclude the discussion of putting in some more level 2s, but it's not the focus.
Well, I just wanted to be sure that that we also loop tourism in on this for gateway towns or gateway cities or pathways, because they may have some traffic data or visitation data that would be helpful to this conversation.
That's a great idea. We'll do that. And Don, would you like to share your screen and walk us through where we're at? Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
All right, we can see it.
You see it? Okay. All right. Got a couple of things. Okay, so this is kind of where we left it off last month. I showed you that I had identified different layers that we can look at. This one represents different traffic volumes around the county. And we also had another one that shows where is it, the actual grid capacity for different electrical providers around the county. Green meaning that they have adequate 3-phase power along these locations. Red, not so much, and yellow is sort of in between. So taking those two layers, I just trying to narrow down where these places might overlap. So I made what like buffers around these areas, so I could see where adequate traffic patterns and the grid capacity overlapped, and I came up with a layer that looks like this. So this is my first step at sort of narrowing down. These are all traffic corridors that have over 4,000 trips per day, annual average, and also have grid capacity of green would be greater than 1.5 megawatt capacity, and the yellow would be between 600 and 1.5 megawatt capacity. So this helps narrow it down a little bit. And the next step would be, let me see, I've got a bunch of layers here.
A lot of layers.
Can you tell, Don, can you tell me where I-90 is?
I-90 is up in this. This is I-90 here.
Okay,
This stretch
the
here.
orange line. Okay.
Oh
got it.
yeah, yep.
Okay.
So as we so I've already started sort of narrowing down, because we also want to look at places that have amenities. You know, we don't want people to stop in the middle of nowhere with nothing to do to charge their cars up. So I started narrowing it down, looking at aerial photos, looking at the, you know, places that might have some businesses. We can see that like in the Germantown corridor here, you know, not too much in the southern part of the town, but there is, of course, Germantown hamlet. I'm trying to zoom in on my wrong. Here we go. Another one I've looked at was New Lebanon. You know, there's this whole Route 20 corridor that has quite a few businesses on it. Adequate traffic volumes and adequate EV infrastructure in that area. One I was a little bit surprised at, but I'm not sure how to look at this, was the Mellonville Philmont area. You know, we don't really consider that a arterial corridor through the county, but they're right in this small area there. Here there is over 4,000 traffic counts, annual average traffic per day, and they have adequate infrastructure there. So, you know, and amenities obviously in Philmont. So I didn't want to rule them out. That wasn't a place that we had identified before. Looking in Hudson, there are some places in Hudson that have, you know, high traffic. Obviously, Route 9G coming into 3rd Street that has significant traffic coming into the city. The center section of the city, the grid is it's all red there, of course. So I kind of eliminated that as a possibility. But the western end from 3rd Street down to like the Amtrak station might be a place. And also past the hospital through Worth Avenue and past the hospital there. I forget the name of the road.
What about the Amtrak station itself? Would that be a good idea? Or
Well,
is that a bad idea?
that's the next step. I think we've kind of identified these areas that have the traffic volumes, the grid capacity. Next step is to identify the actual commercial amenities, maybe businesses because I think one of the requirements also would be a place to park your car while it's charging. So we're going to not just commercial uses, but also commercial uses that have parking areas adjacent to them. So yeah, trying to narrow. The next step would be to add in the tax parcel data, filter it out for commercial or community uses, looking at parking capacity for different businesses, that kind of stuff. Which I've already kind of started to do, but you know, I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself before we looked at that. You know, then there's the Route 9 corridor down through Valation, Kinderhook, but all of the villages look like they have the potential to possibly host a DC fast charger, which I thought was a good thing, a good sign here.
Don, I have a question, but first Supervisor Adams has her hand up.
So is there any way to distinguish between local traffic and other traffic? Because I think the
Not-
Millville Philmont is a local cut through. It's a
Right.
shortcut across the county. So
Yeah.
that, I don't think it would have the same impact. I think that's
Right.
why it's showing up the way it is.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. There isn't in the data itself. That's sort of something we have to add local knowledge to all this data ourselves. You know, and I would also say even this Route 9 corridor from Kinderhook to Valatia, I have a feeling that there's a lot of like state workers who live in
Yeah.
Kinderhook and make the trip up to Albany every day. So that might be influencing that traffic pattern a little bit.
And they have one of those stations where you drop your car and pick up a bus
Yeah,
there, which
right.
makes a big difference. So
Yeah.
the other thing is I'm thinking about all of the seasonal traffic, both winter and summer, that comes off the Taconic in East
Mhm.
Chatham. And Chatham is very close.
Yeah.
There. So you might not have the traffic now, but it might be if the charging were there, you'd have the amenities and the location. And
Right.
I'm also thinking about the traffic that comes off the thruway in I-90 at B3 in Canaan. I mean, both of those are huge traffic
Yeah. Right.
area.
So here you're talking about
Yeah.
where Love Strike. Yeah. So that is
And I know Loves has been interested in this in the past, but was told we didn't have the infrastructure to do it. But, part of this is getting the infrastructure, I think.
right. Right.
And I
So,
noticed that just north of New Lebanon, there's a lot of infrastructure north of, that was another layer, I think, but there was a lot of infrastructure just north of New Lebanon.
mhm.
So, but I'm just thinking about the Taconic and also the Thruway and I-90.
Right. Right.
Yeah, those are great points about and I think Don's right about the local versus the kind of pass-through traffic, commuter traffic, and we collectively can look at the difference there between, from our local knowledge, seasonal traffic, and those locations. Um, I think there'll be some knowledge from Blink and Livingston as well. And so as we go through this process, sharing this information, getting their feedback, they may have some from their experience, some additional insights. We have two hands up, or I think, I don't know who came first, Christina Onsack and then Steve Powers.
I think I was last, but I'll go. I was just going to say that there's actually a woman who works for the hub part-time doing some of our data stuff that works for the DMV and specializes in traffic safety data. So I can connect you with her if that would be helpful. She I think would be the person to talk to about figuring out the local versus
Mhm.
things like that.
Okay.
So
Great.
Don, should I email you with her?
Yeah. Sure. Send their contact info along. Sure.
Thank you, Christina. Steve?
Hey there. One thing I think that Love's would be a great location for one. I'm not sure by that yellow color whether that indicates they have the capacity there, but also Supervisor Hoatling who's on the call, I guess, had asked me to research potential fast charger in New Lebanon as well, Don. So I have reached out to, we do have a level 2 charger here,
Mhm.
and I have reached out to the guys who had done that and asked them to assess potential locations in town. So we're following up on that.
That's great. Yeah, and that area is definitely trafficked locally, but it's also quite a pass through for, heading up into kind of Vermont and other places. So there's a lot of traffic moving through there.
We had a lot of problems locating it anywhere in New Lebanon. I think for a fast charger, I think we'll have the same problems.
Yeah.
So it's sort of hidden off the road and it doesn't get a lot of usage, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean, you really need this to be well located with regard to its proximity, visibility, simplicity, access to like walking to the store or whatever it is you're doing for the half hour. Supervisor Hoatling.
Yeah, I just want to thank Steve for doing that work. I was inspired by the presentation at the full board meeting the other night, and they gave us the heads up that there is now funding, whereas before there wasn't. There was only funding for the slower chargers. I do think 20 and 22 corridor, and Bruce, we're looking to locate it right on the 2022 corridor, where there's also the access to the higher power. So, once we get a little further on that, then maybe we can collaborate with the county on New Lebanon being one of those locations and work together to get that done.
That'd be great. Again, the leadership in New Lebanon is great because, you know, if that can kind of go forward with support from the town to access some of those grants, then, you know, that does serve that part of the county well, and we can focus this effort, this broader effort on other areas. So that's good to know. Thanks. Michael.
Yeah, another minor point of local interest for Philmont is that it's the location of a significant depot for school buses. I think there's probably
That's true too.
30 buses in there.
Yeah, the Johnson Bus Company. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
It also is a location where eventually the rail trail will come through, and that's years away, but there is a planning grant. I think I've mentioned it for the Northwest 11 section, which would be Philmont up to Chatham, the final 11 miles. There's a planning grant that was received by the Rail Trail Association so that an actual shovel-ready plan from that section will be produced in the next, I believe, year or so. And then it'll be a lot of money to raise to build it out over time. But you know, having those kind of critical infrastructure pieces in place will just build support, mutual support. That's right. There's the mandate for electric buses, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 2026. You know, I'm sure there's some leeway there if buses aren't actually available, but at some point that bus depot will have to have electric buses and make the transition over. So, you know, that would be a private charging and maybe using different charging technology than what we're talking about for buses charging overnight, but nonetheless, huge infrastructure upgrades that would happen. And so could there be some sort of project that helps to bring about you know, both of those, you know, public access to fast charging and the infrastructure for electric buses. And, I can reach out to the owner there through a friend who's close to him and see if there's, you know, any interest. But we're moving ahead a little bit. You know, it's great to get all of the kind of these local. We need more, as much of this as possible, the local kind of insights into these locations. But as a systematic effort, Don, do you have an idea as to how we could take this map and we could then, we've done it anecdotally, we've talked about Valatia, the Price Chopper, we've talked about Loves, we've talked about these locations kind of over and over, but is there any systematic way to use this great information so far to overlay those commercial kind of hotspots that we're looking at? You've highlighted a bunch of them. We know what they are.
Yep.
Is it just our knowledge and putting them on the map and highlighting them, or is there any other analysis of data layers that we would want to do to help us so we don't miss anything?
Oh yeah, I can, you know, we have the tax parcel data and I can filter out all the commercial uses in the county and see where they intersect with these identified hotspots or whatever you want to call them. And I've tested that already, and I came up with like about 1,000 different commercial uses that are within these areas that you see on the map right now. And I think once we get that list, I think the next step is to go to the local supervisors or mayors and, you know, get some input. Maybe they've talked to some of these folks already. It sounds like the folks in New Lebanon are already doing that, and just kind of, you know, weed out that list and see which private landowners might be interested in having the conversation.
Yep. Is there any way that you can parse the commercial data more so we're not dealing with 1,000, but we're dealing with
Yes.
retail or any kind of like anything that's public facing? You know, an office building doesn't help us, or a doctor's office so much
Right.
in terms of amenities. I mean, you know, people need to go to the doctor. Nice to charge, but that's probably not ideal. Like, you know, I don't know how the data are organized, but, you know, can you list out types of commercial enterprises, restaurants, supermarkets,
Yeah.
other, you can, okay, great.
So
So,
do all that. Yep.
so let's keep working on that, Don, offline.
Yep.
And then the other question is, I know you can do this, but would it be worth also looking at ownership by municipality? So a bunch of land throughout the county is owned by, I don't know how much, but the county or, um, uh, towns. And I don't know what other kind of public um, organizations might also be included there. Then we would have another layer of looking at municipal areas.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I can pick all that out, and it's and again, that's somewhat automated. The GIS can do that automatically, but then there's always that manual part where you want to, like I said, I think we need parking areas. So, you know, all those commercial areas on Warren Street and Hudson, they're not really ideal places for DC fast chargers, but adjacent municipally owned parking lots might be. So you have to look at like both ends of the things, the location, the area available, and the adjacent amenities where people want to visit. So yeah, it's a it's a thought process. You have to kind of think through the whole thing, and you know
Okay, I've got some hands up.
identify, yeah.
Thanks, Don. Uh, Supervisor Adams?
So I was just going to say that the question that was last raised about municipal owned land, either county or towns, the Mike Tucker for CDC has done a lot of this work already for the Housing Task Force. So I think that data is readily available. And I forgot what my other question was. I waited so long to ask it. So let Christina go and maybe I'll remember it again.
Go ahead, Christina.
Sorry, just when you said the town-owned land, I was curious if this is would be an appropriate use for like capped landfills. Like there were so many small town dumps that people, look at developing for solar, but a lot of them are too small to make that viable. I wonder if this could be like an interesting land use experiment for all those little tiny dumps that can't be used for anything else.
Yeah, I don't
If
know.
they're close, the one in Germantown is very close to the village, but I don't know if that's the same everywhere.
I mean, if it has a parking area and it's close to amenities, I mean, I don't think you can do anything on top of the dump with like
Yeah.
building a parking area, but I'm not an expert in that. Supervisor Adams, your second question.
I remembered. How many of these do we think that the county needs? How do we
Yeah.
identify capacity? And I think that's important when we're thinking about being competitive for funding, because we know the funding is limited.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great question, and I don't know how we would. It's a speculative question. How fast do people? How does the fleet transition over to electric, and demographically, how much does traffic increase over the next 5-10 years? And there are trends, and there are data that are available that we could use to project that. And I'm sure these companies do that regularly because they're making investments with that in mind. So it's a really good question. I think we, at the very least, we need to start with one or two. And that's obvious. We don't have that. So maybe something happens in New Lebanon. It sounds like still on track to happen at the airport, Columbia County Airport, which would be a fast charger. We don't really know the exact timeline, but it sounds like Supervisor Knott has said that that's moving forward. So it looks like even if we don't, if we as the county don't do anything, maybe one or two of these stations might come online in the next year or two. But I think it just behooves us to be aggressive at this point. The funding is available now. In 5 years, I'm not sure if there'll be as much generous government funding for this type of thing, and then we fall behind. So, but I mean, there are quantitative ways of doing it, and I think it's a great question that we need to explore.
But I think the point, really the point behind my asking this is, I want to make sure that the county is well served, that it's not just the first man out, but it's that the charging stations are where they need to be to serve the county.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't think I think the example of the previous generation of level twos didn't do that.
Right.
We've had all these issues with them because either they're also technical issues where they don't work that well, but sometimes, but it's a great point. That's why we're going through this exercise. We're trying to be really methodical and use data to really justify where we prioritize things. And I think in addition to the mapping, and we'll look at the commercial and the municipal, we've identified areas time and time again that people from our local knowledge think make sense, like Love's, like the Price Chopper Plaza in Valencia, like near the Rip Van Winkle Bridge, where there's the walk across the bridge, and there's some public land, maybe state land, that they just redid recently with the roundabout. That's a nice spot. There's no real amenities, but there's a walk. So Bell's Pond, the gas station there, the new gas station that went in, I forgot the name, Irving, not Irving, but I don't know the name of it, but maybe something in Germantown. If folks have other locations that they think really make a lot of sense from their local knowledge, then we'll raise them now or send them along so we can kind of bring them into this analysis and highlight them. So it's a combination of the data and looking at and trying to find other locations and our local knowledge. But Dan, you wanted to add something?
You just read my mind, actually. I was thinking, Copac has been fumbling along, trying to get an EV station, through our Climate Smart Committee, and we've got a location, and we've been talking to vendors. But my thought is just, do we have any way of kind of knowing what all individual towns are doing as part of this process? Because I'm just thinking, I happen to be here at this meeting, so I can share that with you. I don't know if Taconic or Ancrum, what they may have in the works as well.
Yeah, I mean, other than, are you talking about a fast charger in your case?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this is a question I think that the EMC could help out with, Michael.
Right.
We can email out, and we can also put a second email out, because not every town's represented currently in the EMC. So put a second question out to the supervisors to find out if they can ask, their task force to find out, is there any discussion going on? There is discussion happening at the county level and in some towns, but we would like to know and make sure we're linked up with any of those town discussions, so there's not overlapping or clumsy efforts to try to do something. That's a great point, Dan. So we'll follow up with an EMC letter and a supervisor letter, and in that, we can also describe this process that we're working on and invite those supervisors to suggest locations, or if they're interested, participate in those existing locations that we're starting to kind of zero in on.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Unless there's anything else here, we're not prepared, obviously, to say here are the top 3 priorities. We're making progress, but it's complicated, and we want to be as inclusive as possible and make sure we're not just rushing ahead without getting input from people. So it sounds like in terms of next steps, Don, we'll add the commercial data. We'll try to parse it for what we think are public-facing commercial locations with parking. We'll look at the municipal data, find municipal land that also has those qualities, amenities, and we'll continue to highlight these locations that we've worked on. My battery is dying. Hold on a second. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm coming back. know what's going on here. I seem to be plugged in. All right, I'll keep working on this. Let's move to and we'll follow up, of course, with everyone. Keep everyone apprised. But if anyone has any additional ideas here, then just pass them along. Don, do you want to take over for a minute and talk about the fleet inventory, fleet efficiency work, all that
Sure.
work?
Yep.
Great.
Gonna change, well, that's EV infrastructure, sorry. Fleet inventory. All right, change my screen here. You should have all received a email or some kind of notification that I opened up a Google Drive open to everybody. I hope you got that. And in that Google Drive folder, there's this. That's where I'm going to rather than sending everybody out attachments every month, I'm going to try to keep that folder updated with all these documents that I'm putting together. But this is the outline of the fleet inventory, fleet efficiency policy, and right sizing actions that we started looking at last month. Again, I talked to the controller, and the county does have, we have a couple of spreadsheets that list all the vehicles that the county owns, and another spreadsheet that all the county leases from a third party. So we have and according to him, it appears to be fairly complete. I mean, we think it includes everything. There are a couple of fields that we would have to add in order to comply with the requirements of the fleet inventory action, but we can get most of that just by plugging in the VIN number of each vehicle and getting the models and the gas mileage and whatnot. The one thing that we don't have for each one is the total mileage of each vehicle. So that would mean reaching out to the folks who actually use these vehicles and trying to set up some system of them updating the mileage on a regular basis. So that's the first step, and I think we are well on our way to accomplishing that. After
Great.
that, yep, Dave.
Oh, go ahead, Don. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Keep
After that, the next step, or a sort of an in-between step, would be this National Grid Make Ready program, where the county would identify locations where if we were to buy EV vehicles, where would we store them? Is the grid capacity adequate in those areas? How much energy would each EV vehicle use on a monthly or annual basis, just so we would know how much it would cost us to fuel these vehicles up and be able to compare those costs with a internal combustion engine vehicle. And after we have those two things in process, it would be asking the county to look at a fleet efficiency policy, which again, I've talked to a supervisor not, and I did a little research on my own, and we couldn't find one for the county. We weren't sure if we had a sort of a fleet acquisition policy or not. We couldn't find anything, but the next step would be to try to develop such a policy for the county. So what are the steps that we are going to take in order to convert our existing fleet over to more efficient electric powered vehicles, which it's going to happen at some point. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind that eventually the county is going to be buying EVs to replace their existing gas-powered vehicles. But it's a matter of how do we do that, and how do we do that in the most efficient way possible. And in this document, I went out, reached out to look at what some other counties have done. And these links in this Word doc. You hold down the control key and you can click on it, and it will open up the example policies that I found. There were three counties: Tompkins, Ulster, and Suffolk County. I found have EV policies that they've adopted, and also three towns and a village that also adopted some policies. They're not they're not really complex documents. I think the longest one was like four or 5 pages long, and some of them were only 1 page long. But this part of it would require, obviously, this is going to be a policy adopted by the Board of Supervisors, so it'll require quite a bit of input and discussion amongst the supervisors over what this policy is going to look like.
That's great. Thanks, Don. This is just great information. It's all in one place. It's in our drive. And Don has done a lot of work behind the scenes here to kind of set us up for success. He's already, as he mentioned, working on the fleet inventory, and that is key information that we'll have to bring forward as a package, along with proposal for what the policy might be. And that will allow the supervisors to really understand what they're dealing with and what their options are and what other localities have done, so we can get this a policy adopted, which is good in general because there is no vehicle policy right now, as Don said. So it's good for broader purposes for planning for the county. And then when we're ready, we'll bring that package to through the process so that the board can take appropriate action. And that will set the stage for us to have a formal understanding and policy for the next round of decisions on leased and purchased vehicles, hopefully soon. And we can accelerate the transition that, as Don said, will happen inevitably, but we don't want to wait for it to happen. We would like to help set the table and figure out how we can assist in making that happen as quickly as possible. So great work, Don. Thank you. Any questions? Otherwise, we're going to move forward with a quick update on the website. There's a lot of interest. I'll just start by saying there's a lot of interest. Also came up in the EMC meeting, continually comes up about having one place to gather information on climate, local efforts, what people can do about it, and what is being done, what's happening, where they can get involved, what they can do personally. And it's quite a bit of also coordinating town and county schedules, events. There's a lot of opportunity there to fill this need. And we feel that the county website can do that and can link to all of these other efforts that are ongoing to help coordinate people and give people more information and have a reliable source of information that they can turn to understand what they can do and what's happening in their community. So the first step, though, is to get our website name pulled out from the Google Sites that's buried in, and also have it kind of pulled out from being nested under the EMC, which we think is accomplished by a simple, Don, you can explain it, but a change that would be making our current website located at a different location, and then we can continue to work on the content. And that change is being discussed right now in the planning department and IT. I don't know where it's at, so maybe we can get a quick update on that. But it would be climatesmart.Columbia County, New York. Right, Don? Is that the URL?
Yeah, it's called a subdomain, basically. It's just a change in the, it's still hosted under Columbia County's Google Sites main domain, but it's just the historians did a similar thing with it when they developed their website. Their website name is historians.columbiacountynewyork.com. And it just makes it easier to figure out where you are, rather than a really kind of arcane Google Sites URL that you'll often see with a lot of Google site websites.
Yeah. And we do think, I mean, on that point of Google Sites, that's what sorry, I was just reading a chat. That is what's used to kind of host and update the site. That technology. There are more robust solutions like WordPress, which you pay for. I'm not sure if Google Sites is free, but the county has chosen not to, at least for most of the county websites, not pay for that. It's not expensive, but it's something. So if we feel, I don't think this is the case now, Don, we feel limited by the capacity of the Google Sites platform in order to do what we want to do. But if that's the case down the line, we can have that discussion. So both substantive, what you can do on a website, and also content-wise, also stylistic limitations. But is that right, Don?
For now, I think Google Sites is fine. I mean, I am learning more about it every time I add something to the website and do a little research. And there are things that you can do to dress it up quite a bit. So I'm happy with the way the Google Sites tool works. For now.
Perfect. So Supervisor Adams.
I just want to ask you to repeat the name again, and also to say, when do we start directing inquiries to the new name?
That's a question I have. Well, the name is ClimateSmart.Columbia County, New York. Is that right? New York?
Yeah.
Climate Smart, Columbia County, New York.
Yeah, ClimateSmart.ColumbiaCounty.New York.
Okay.
No, not
No.
New York.
Sorry.
ColumbiaCountyNewYork.com. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's not a state URL. Oh, okay. Or county or government URL. Got it.
Yeah.
So it's ClimateSmart.ColumbiaCountyNewYork.com. And that is the main website for the county is ColumbiaCountyNewYork.com.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So this creates a subdomain in the front of it to make it easier for people. The second question is when this, and I think it's just a matter of flipping a switch, right? It's like it's not posting it anywhere else. Just it's right, Don.
Yeah, I don't know if Patrice can answer that question. I believe Patrice sent a
It wasn't
question.
that easy for the historical site. I know that Sherry Franks did a lot of work to move it for the historians. So I don't think it's flipping a switch. I think there's a little more to it than that.
Well, from a technical standpoint, Don, is there what is involved?
Well, you can take that URL and point it wherever you want. That's the easy part. I think the other question is
Developing the rest.
Yeah.
Well, developing the content is definitely
Yeah.
the work involved here. This should not be. But the question is, when can we start directing traffic from our website to that URL? So when people type that in, they get to our website. And that's a simple question, I think, because that is flipping a switch. And how do we flip that switch is the question. That wasn't rhetorical. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I think the desire from the folks that I've talked to is to have a separate website that is not underneath the EMC's website. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Absolutely.
basically to have
First-
our website be
Yes.
that at that location. The
Right.
part
Yeah.
currently
That's
nested
the end
underneath-
goal.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. So that means we have a lot of content already on those web pages, and it's just a matter of separating those pages out into its own website and then using that new URL to point to that new website.
Don, will we have access to Sherry Franks? Can she do this for you, or do you have to do it?
I've been talking to Sherry, and I have,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
yeah.
Because I'm thinking of your time, and she's, she helped the historian. She might be able to help you.
Well, I've talked a lot to Sherry about it because she knows a lot about the websites, and I can
Yeah,
tell you
she
that
does.
she's pretty busy with other websites too. So I think we can work together.
So
Okay.
Don, just to clarify, is this a question of, and I do appreciate this is not maybe that I oversimplified it by saying flip a switch. That does sound oversimplified, but nonetheless, there's time involved. But is that all it is? And I don't mean to diminish the what that means. I don't know how much time, but there's time. Is there any kind of approval that is needed to happen before the work can go into making the change?
I don't think so.
Is that the case?
If it's a request from the Climate Smart Committee or Task Force, I think that's
Patrice, do you know? I mean, do we need to make a motion to, pass a resolution to request this? It seems very, it seems unnecessary to me, but
Ron, we didn't have to do that for Bill Better, right? He
So
just
yeah,
made the request.
I can jump in here a little bit, and I'm not positive where it stands now. I see Patrice has got some audio problems and can't speak to us, so she's chatting. I did speak with Chairman Morel about this a couple weeks ago, and I thought he was going to have a chat with Donnie or Patrice on this, and I didn't know. I know that day Matt was meeting with Chris from IT, and I thought, because I don't really understand exactly what's needed to be done either, but I do know Sherry was instrumental in there. So I can follow up again with Matt to see where that direction was. That's where I think it needs to come from at this point in time,
But Ron, the parallel is with the Bill Better and the County 250 Committee.
Yep.
And that was just a request that
Right. Yeah, no, I
it
know
didn't
that we
require any
need to-
motions or
Like I
votes
said, I
by the
didn't know that-
committees or anything like that. It was just a motion.
Right.
It
When
just
David
went
first
straight
brought
through.
this up to me, I thought there was an expense incurred, and that would need a resolution. But so I did chat with Chairman, and I don't know. I'll follow up and see where that went to, but I haven't heard any more recently.
yeah. There is zero expense involved in what
Right.
we're talking about right now. Yeah.
Okay,
But I'll follow up with Matt, and we'll see where we are with that.
thank you so much, Supervisor Knott and Don. So we know there's no expense. We're making a request. The task force is making a request that this change occur. We don't see a need for a motion and a resolution to do that. And that hopefully will happen soon, and we'll get an update on that. The more important question is then the harder question is organizing new content and updating that content so we can serve this need that is out there. And there are people on this task force who have expressed interest in participating in that kind of thing. And then there are folks outside of it as well. One of the EMC members, this came up the other day, a couple of them were very interested in doing this and working on it. So if there are any volunteers that would like to work with Don and I on starting to develop an outline of content and then starting to develop that content, that would be very helpful. Anyone that has experience with websites, that's even more helpful, but it's not necessary.
Kistria, do you remember the name of the woman at the Climate Smart Carnival who had the marketing experience, who said she'd love to work on the website?
Yes, it's blanking in my head right now. Don?
Deb Castellano, are you talking about?
What's that?
Deb
Deb.
Castellano? Yeah.
Yeah, Deb.
Yeah.
I think she's very busy, but I think she might want to get paid to do it nowadays.
Well,
I don't know
at
if
least
that counts.
we'll remember that she offered, and she's either available or she's not. But at the time, she was very interested in doing something.
Okay.
And another thing to keep in mind, this is a fairly sizable lift, and it's something we want to do well. we can do it incrementally, but we want to continue to build it and, make something useful here. So perhaps this is something we do need funds for to help us. And, that is an option for us to request those funds, especially now that we don't have a need to request funds for a community greenhouse gas inventory for a contractor, because that's going to happen through CRPC at no cost. And I think Don's going to give us an update on the grants. We've raised some money. This hopefully wouldn't be a large expense, but we could create a budget for what we think is necessary and a group of people to work on developing the content with someone and do something really nice. So I don't know what the appetite of the task force is for pursuing something like that, but I think it could help us move things along and develop something much more robust. I'm just going to sit in the silence. If you stay quiet, someone tends to, it's awkward, right? So people want to fill the awkward silence and to say something. It's getting awkward. Okay, so if you have any ideas on that, let us know. We'll reach out to Deb and continue and start this work. We really would appreciate any help from folks who have an appetite and an interest. Don, you want to give us an update on the grant tracking and also specifically the clean energy communities opportunity for more funding? That's really interesting and really well presented in the document we put together.
Okay, one more screen share here. All right. So this document also, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more here. There, a little better. So this document also in the Google Drive link that I shared with you. And again, last month we talked about trying to track what funds have been coming in and where they're going, what we're using them for, and what we have generated. So I've identified really just one $5,000 grant that we have received and the $15,000 grant that is in process. We are applying for that. That's making its way through the system. So the first $5,000 grant, I know it was, we received that after we did the benchmarking, but it wasn't really directly because of the benchmarking. It was a designation. We became a designated community by completing 4 actions under the NYSERDA CEC program. The benchmarking happened to be the last one that put us over the edge. So that's why we got that initial $5,000 grant due to the benchmarking that put us over the 5 action number. So we received that $5,000 grant. We have so these are the high impact actions that we've received, and we get points for each one. The benchmarking, we got a total of 300 points. The solar campaign, we got 200 points. We did not receive a $15,000 grant because we had missed that opportunity because the grants were all used up by the time we had completed that campaign. The current campaign we're under, the clean heating, cooling, energy efficiency, we will get 500 points for that. We have been approved to apply for the $15,000 grant, so that gives us a total of $20,000 that we either have or will get shortly, and a total of 1,800 points total under the program.
Don, let me interrupt before you move forward to the next step. So just to quickly update, 5,000 came in to the county treasury, and that was deposited. The 15,000 is a reimbursement for a project, and we've identified a solar project that
right.
is occurring, and we've requested, and I just saw an email, Don, that it was approved, a 2-month extension for that. So that was requested yesterday, it just got approved. So that 15,000 will go into offsetting some of the cost of a pre-existing solar project, which is great. That's how the money should be spent. And what we're doing here is we're just tracking this so that we're able to say when we want to request money in the budget cycle for, let's say, help with the website or something else, that we can just say we've brought in $20,000 into the county, and we'd like to request the use of some of that funding. Carry on, Don. Sorry, I just wanted to just clarify that.
Yeah, so this is where we are right now. Okay, we have 1,800 points that we generated, and we have in process of receiving $20,000 in grant money. Next step that I'm looking at, we have the clean heating and cooling demo, which is essentially we can put a poster at the solid waste department administrative building because they use heat pumps to for their heating and cooling. So we get 700 points for that, and a couple other easy ones. We could host a couple of state trainings related to climate mitigation or adaptation. A couple of them, there are 5. I think there are 5 of them that the state has the trainers that have been trained to give these training sessions. So it's just a matter of the county setting up a location, buying the donuts and coffee, inviting the people in to watch the training, and the state trainers come down and do the 1 or 2 hour training session for that particular topic. I just picked out a couple of them that I thought might be interesting for folks in the county. Battery energy storage for first responders. I know that's a hot topic with the firemen. They they are really concerned about these batteries and what the implications are with fighting fires. Also, solar PV permitting and inspecting might be an interesting one. So any 2 of those 5 trainings, that would put us over the 3,100, give us 3,100 points over the 3,000 point threshold. That would allow us to apply for another $30,000 grant. So this seems to be a fairly simple, easy threshold to achieve, getting over 3,000 points in the CEC program, qualifying for 30,000. And if these would be the same, we would have to pick from that same list of pre-approved projects like we did for the initial $15,000 grant. If we were to locate these projects in the city of Hudson or the town of Greenport, we would be qualify for an additional $10,000 on top of that. So that will turn that $30,000 into a $40,000 grant.
Great, thanks, Don. So,
beyond that, there are other things we can pick. The next level would be a 4,000 point level, which would qualify us for a $70,000 grant after that. So.
Which also seems attainable, a little more complicated, but the $30,000, $40,000 grant at the next level is really straightforward. So it's just a matter of a poster and getting two training scheduled, which Don is already working on. So that's really exciting, and thank you so much for that, for making this so clear. First of all, because it's not clearly, you don't go to a website and see this clearly laid out anywhere. Don has done that for us. Again, planning, and we appreciate that. Christina.
I just wanted to talk about the demo action a little bit. That could also be a Heat Smart event if you wanted. We did that in Germantown. We, when we did the educational kiosk, we also did a presentation on heat pumps and brought people there so they can really see and analyze the data over the last year of the energy savings, and people to be able to be in the building and see it working and see, the graph, I think was really helpful for people, as in addition to the kind of presentation I gave on the Zoom.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So
We've
just, but
already,
just
go
to be
ahead.
clear, what they use the word demo in this action, but it's really, it doesn't have to be an in-person demonstration of the heat pump. It's just like a little kiosk or a set of brochures and a poster. But yeah, that would, yeah, that would, I think would be helpful if we did.
Totally. I just think because it's in a municipal building that the public doesn't go to that often,
Yep.
for us, we were like, let's get some people in here so we have some pictures of
Yeah,
some people learning from this kiosk.
right.
But yeah, it's not required, but it could be nice.
Yeah, but yeah, we could, yeah, another opportunity for some public interaction for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And we were already talking about, Christina, reaching out to get some of the materials that you've already produced for the campaign that could be used for the poster, or at least, you know, some of the communication elements. So great. Well, thanks so much, Don. We're going to move along now. Community solar update. We've heard that Don and I were talking about this. We've heard that few, if any, people that joined the community solar campaign that we ran last year have actually, and signed up, have actually been subscribed to either Neighborhood Sun or Nexamp, any projects. We're not sure there are any people in the county who signed up last year who actually have gotten access to a subscription which is current and actually happening. They're not just on a list to do so. We're working to get to really make sure we understand whether that's true or not. And if it's not true, how many people have actually been dedicated capacity to existing projects. We were surprised to hear this feedback. And Don, I don't remember where we heard it from first, but and if anyone here has heard otherwise or has heard stories, similar stories, it would be helpful to understand that. But we're just going to reach out to the two providers and find out what the status is. This is concerning in particular because when we vetted the companies, we one of the key criteria was the understanding of what their capacity in the different utility territories was, and current capacity, or what they had said was like current capacity anticipated into the year of the project that we were working on. And then there was discussion about when future capacity would come as well. And so if it's true that no one has been subscribed, then we just have a question as to what that current capacity that we had discussed with them actually meant, and how much longer people will wait. Supervisor Adams?
So in Canaan, I can say we didn't use either of those providers. We used Ampion, but most of our subscriptions came anywhere from 8 to 12 months later than we thought they would, even though we were given the same information by Ampion that they had capacity at the time that we signed up. Part of it had to do, and it'll be interesting to see if this is still an issue, with the fact that NYSEG was still using inadequate resources to make the changes in their billing offices. And they didn't have the capacity to handle the number of changes that were coming through. And then part of it was that, 11 other towns are doing the same thing at the same time. So capacity was a moving target. So eventually we did get everybody served, but it was not through bringing new capacity online. It was just from people unsubscribing or leaving the area, and it was kind of backfill kind of capacity. And my understanding from both NYSEG and Ampion is that they don't have any new capacity coming on for 2 years. Everything they've got at the moment is spoken for the next 2 years. So I think it's really a moving target.
Okay, well, we'll gather more. Thanks. That's really helpful. We'll gather more information so that we can know what the story really is, what the accurate timeline is for people when we get questions. Hey, I signed up for your community solar project and I'm still waiting, which we're hearing some questions.
But we ended up sending letters to we got a list of subscribers from the vendor, and then we sent them letters explaining the delay. So that might be something we'd want to do as well. Because I don't think we had just less than 100. So it's not a lot of letters to send, but I think the goodwill is worth it.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll follow up on that. We don't, Audrey had to drop off, so the climate adaptation resilience plan update, we're gonna get electronically. She said she would send us, we'll pass that along. Wendy or Jolene, I know you both, I don't know if either of you are on, they had to drop off early, I believe. Oh, Jolene.
Jolene's on.
Oh, Wendy.
We're back. We're together. Sorry,
Okay.
another meeting and then we're back.
Great. There was an exciting demo. Can you give us an update on what's happening with the waste digester?
Sure. So we had that demo. Anyone that wasn't able to come that would like to come and check out the digester, give the office a call. We'd love to have you come over. Just give us a heads up because we're still under a lot of construction up here right now. But if you want to come and see it in action or something, give us a call. We'll work something out because it's pretty cool to watch. It's pretty exciting. So this was the first full week after kind of the kickoff launch, really, of, we're going to take everything. And we doubled almost within that first week of material collected. So it was a great, we're doing a slow and steady progress, but it's doing really well.
Great, thank you. Do you have the numbers on how much material you are collecting at this point?
We're collecting weekly still. I don't have my computer screen up at the moment. I'm on Jolene's profile. I know that the northern end of the county is definitely collecting more. Actually, Copake was one that doubled in collection this past week once we got, once we kind of made it official that we're taking everything. The lower stations, Germantown, Livingston, Gallatin, are still very small in numbers. We're looking at less than 20 pounds per week coming out of there. Chatham, Kinderhook, Copake again, that one really surprised me this week. I think we're probably going to send out another container, so they might have two. Their numbers increased quite a bit.
Okay, great. And to clarify, are you accepting from businesses at this point, and anyone that has access to the transfer station?
So we're geared towards residential collection. So if a business, usually any businesses that come into the station they have to come into the Greenport station anyways. That's the only station that accepts commercial recycling and commercial garbage anyways. So if they want to have a conversation about that, we'd be open to a discussion, but I haven't seen any commercial interest as of yet.
In terms of restaurants or any food facilities, is there a plan to reach out to those types of businesses to try to develop interest?
Sure. So in time, we will be expanding the program. Right now, we really are just trying to focus on making sure that the quality and quantity that we're receiving is at the best it can be. Once we get more and more people involved and more facilities coming in to drop off, that's when we kind of lose the quality of the product. And we really, the end result needs to be a clean result in order to be able to do something with it and not actually putting it back in the landfill. So, we're just going to kind of slow and steady progress, but it will, we're already discussing options to kind of expand this program.
That's great. All right. Thank you so much for the update, for the work. Any other questions? Great. Climate Carnival. Jolene, can you just turn the camera?
So Don and I had a great meeting yesterday with Mike Tucker regarding a number of issues for the carnival. Mike was open to the fact of being our fiscal sponsor, similar to what CLC did last year for us. He's also looking at options to cover or offer insurance options for those that are unable to acquire the insurance. So that's something he's going to get back to us on. We also brainstormed the possibility of using the Chamber of Commerce as a resource and expanding. As we had talked about in our earlier meetings, we want to do a little bit more. So that would include farmers markets and any other Columbia County business that we might have missed the first time around. So it was a really successful meeting. Right now, the issue is we do have the fairgrounds on hold, holding the date. We have money that CLC has that would be a great deposit, but the county has to commit. So I'm not sure the status of where we are with that, but we really do need to get that money out of CLC's coffers and get it to the fairgrounds.
Thanks for the update. When you say the county has to commit,
It has to come out of the planning department.
Okay, has to commit to the date and to actually doing the event.
Yeah.
And
of course, you know, I know that we're looking at 2024, but the fairgrounds is holding that date for us. And if we're not going to commit to it, you know, we shouldn't be holding up the date because they could have another event.
well, what about a resolution to?
Yeah, that's all we need. We did one last year. So I know Patrice and Don have a lot going on in their departments, but
Patrice just left the room. She's out talking to somebody, so she's not actually at her screen right now.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
yep.
this is something we talked about. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that in the next month or two,
Yep.
we can get that done.
Would it be helpful for the task force to pass a resolution to kind of just urge the county government to move forward?
Yeah, I'm sure that they're on board with this, but of course with Tucker too, we're gonna have to need an agreement with him. And I believe we did a resolution the last time too. So maybe once we get it ironed out with Mike, all the details, we can do those two resolutions together.
Okay, well, let's aim to, if I mean, just taking your cue, that it sounds like we want to move forward. So if you think that the timing makes sense, then maybe next month we can prepare a resolution in advance of that, so that the government and planning can move forward. Does that sound about right? We'll talk about it and see if that makes sense as things develop. Thanks, Jolene. That's great. That's a wrap. That's all we have. And it was a beefy meeting, but if there's anything else, speak now or forever hold your peace, at least until the next month, or you send us an email. Okay, so thanks everyone. Appreciate everyone's participation as always, and we'll talk. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.